Namaskar to all of you. It's really an honor and privilege to be among the distinguished guests, delegates of this prestigious and timely conference, Global Energy Summit, which is dedicated to energy transition. I was just recalling, actually, looking at His Excellency, the Ambassador of Iceland, what Honorable Prime Minister of Iceland just 2-3 days back has said that we should have good sambandh among us. So the international collaboration, that makes basically the key to success nowadays. And looking at what we have seen during last 5 decades, in a sense, the history repeats itself. In 73, we first saw how the global economy can be impacted by the decision of one particular regions in the globe. And that began the movement for energy conservation and alternate energy sources. Then 79, again the Iran revolution, again there was a disruption. Then sometimes in 2008-9, then the COVID, and now what we see, because of this conflict in the Gulf area, we are again back to square one. We started talking about conservation, then shifted from conservation to efficiency, and again now we have been talking to conserve. That's practically a complete circle that has now completed. When in 79, this European Union, they decided to reduce their oil consumption from 32%. That's the import basically what they have been doing, to a significant amount. And at that time, 89% of the energy requirement was being fulfilled from oil sources. We wanted to reduce it, but we are still dependent 80% on oil. That's one scenario. The second scenario is, as far as we are concerned, we were importing something around 70% of our requirement of oil some 20-30 years back. Today it's around 89%. So on the one hand, when in 80s, we have been preparing for competitive examinations and all that, and we were being told that the oil was sufficient only for 20 years. The R and P ratio, which was being propagated at that time, and which was telling that the oil was sufficient, if the same rate of exploration takes place, it would be sufficient only for 30 or 40 years. Even after 40 years or 46 years, from 80 to 26, we see that the 80% of the global energy requirement is being fulfilled from oil. If all this is happening, when energy independence was being talked of by every country, still our demand, energy demand is being fulfilled from oil only, up to 80%. And from that 80%, major portion is coming from the area which is very vulnerable. So that 20 years what was being taught during 80s, that remained 20 years for another 20 years. And today, if we see that 80% dependence is still on oil, whether the transition is really taking place or not, that's a key question. If we look at our own scenario in India, while our dependence is something around 89% on imported oil, look at a scenario if the entire railway fleet, which is now totally electrified, if it would not have been there, what would have been our situation today? Our dependence on coal is still there. Our base load is being fulfilled from coal, and that will remain so in a scenario where we already have achieved 150 gigawatt of solar, 56 gigawatt of wind, means something around 206 gigawatt is coming from inform renewable sources of energy. And parallelly, if we look at, if we add around 46 gigawatt of hydro and around 5 gigawatt of small hydro, that is around 50 gigawatt of hydro, means around, and then 11 gigawatt of biomass. So we are already something around 270 gigawatt, means equivalent to what is our coal capacity. That is coming from solar, renewable energy. But what is the energy content in that? That is hardly 25%, even I think less than that. And then that is also posing certain other sort of challenges. The challenges in a sense that whether we have adequate transmission capacity to absorb the surplus which would be created at sometimes at noon. So some of the things which are now being talked of, that is the hydrogen, green hydrogen, a specific focus on green to address that surplus electricity which would be available at daytime coming from solar. And then we are talking of electric vehicles, which will again be creating a load for our solar capacity. So that's basically a holistic view, and it's very good that we have been collaborating with different countries. Of course, Iceland on geothermal. Then Netherlands recently, our Prime Minister had a collaboration, had been to Netherlands, and we had a good cooperation agreement with Netherlands on hydrogen. So these are some of the measures which we have been taking. But issue still remains the same. Recently, I was in fact, prior to this meeting, I was discussing with one of the delegates, and they were telling that they have massively worked on energy plantation. And I was telling to him that nature itself has many things which can solve many problems. So when we have been talking about all these things, such measures like the biogas, which was to some extent at one point of time a prominent fuel. I remember 2001 census, around 800,000 households, the primary cooking fuel was biogas. Of course, because of the Ujjwala Yojana, that movement got bit of restriction because people do not want to feed dung. But we need to look at that aspect also, because that not only will help in addressing our cooking fuel requirement, but also help in addressing our requirement for fertilizer, in the sense that the manure produced from biogas will help in providing a better humus to our land, and the land will become more fertile. So these are some of the things on which we have to think during the process of this transition. I still remember, actually, I had been looking after the program of small hydro during the fag end of my career in the ministry. And through that small hydro, almost around 150 megawatt of small hydro plants were being commissioned annually. But one of our senior bureaucrat, who came actually from the power ministry, immediately commented, what will happen if this 150 megawatt will not be installed or commissioned? But sometimes we forget that these 150 megawatts aggregate capacity is not 150 megawatt. These aggregate capacity of 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 15 megawatt are being set up in the remotest corner of the country and providing the electricity requirement of that local area. When there was a natural calamity in Sikkim, it's the small hydropower plant which could provide the electricity to the local area. The power supply did not disrupt because of the small hydro. So sometimes we miss, sometimes what is being said, the small is beautiful, but we forget actually that common or very prominent proverb actually, the small is beautiful. So we also have to look at these aspects, the decentralized energy production capacity needs to be upgraded, and that type of things. And I'm happy to say that after a lot of deliberation in the government from 2017 to 2026, there was no policy on a small hydro, though the program was there. This year, at least, the small hydro has also come into prominence. A new scheme has been launched by the ministry. Similarly, on the biomass side, again, those programs are being revived. So these are some of the new developments which are already taking place and which will perhaps help us to meet our net zero requirement by 2070. With these words, I congratulate and compliment the GEF to organize a very timely summit on these aspects, and I could see the distinguished panels sitting over here who will be deliberating on all these aspects. With these words, thank you. Thanks a lot.